Today, we're going to cover adjectives, aka descriptive verbs, but with the piep irregular. If you watched any of the previous 3 videos, then the next minute or so might sound a bit redundant, but let's do a 90-second refresher on everything we've covered on adjectives. When you first learn an adjective, you'll learn it in either its adjective form, which ends with un or ni은, and will go in front of a noun, like it's a good movie, 좋은 영화예요. Or you'll learn it in its verb or dictionary form, which will come after a noun, and will automatically include some variation of be, as in the movie is good, 영화가 좋아요. When putting an adjective in front of a noun, you will follow the ni은 or un rules. But when putting an adjective after a noun, you will treat it like a verb, which means you can follow the regular rules for a verbs, all verbs, and 하다 verbs. In English, we use some variation of to be in these types of sentences, whether it's am, is, are in present tense, was or were in past tense, or will be or going to be in future tense. However, in Korean, all of these forms of be aren't necessary, because you can think of Korean adjectives as already containing the meaning of be. We practiced this in depth in our last lesson, so let's see if you can remember how to say, the car is small. 차가 작아요. If anything I've said so far has been confusing for you, then I recommend clicking the I up here for a link for all of the previous adjective lessons. Because today we're going to cover the final thing that I want to talk about for adjectives for now, the piep irregular. Piep irregulars are adjectives or verbs that end with piep after dropping ta. When they go before nouns, they will not follow the rules for normal adjectives, but rather their own set of rules, which we covered 2 lessons ago. Drop ta and piep, and add un. So how would you say spicy food? 매운 음식. But now, what if we want to say the food is spicy? In this sentence, notice that spicy comes after food, and we have a form of the verb be in our sentence. That means we will use the dictionary or verb form, which means again we'll conjugate piep adjectives the same way that we would conjugate verbs. But which category do piep verbs fall under? The answer is none of them. Piep adjectives and verbs are irregular, so they'll follow their own set of rules. Again, let's use 맵다 to demonstrate our new rules. As usual, our first step will be to drop ta. But for piep verbs and adjectives, we'll also drop piep, just like we did when putting a piep irregular in front of a noun. Then we'll add u. At this point, we can take a look at the regular verb rules and see that the final vowel is u. So we can follow the normal all verb rules. Add 어 to get 매우어. Then merge 우어 into 워 to get 매워. This would be the casual form, so to make polite, of course, we just add 요. 매워요. In most cases of present tense, this can be simplified. Drop ta and piep, and add 워 for casual form or 워요 for polite form, which we'll be sticking to today. So here are your new rules that will apply to most cases. I say most cases because the rules will change slightly for a few exceptions, and the simplification can't be applied to all tenses like future tense, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, let's go ahead and practice with the 10 piep irregular adjectives that we learned in our previous lessons. We've got 덥다, 춥다, 쉽다, 어렵다, and 새롭다. And we'll do the other 5 afterwards. Let's put each of these into their formal present tense form by following the rules that we just learned. Starting with 덥다. I'll give you a few seconds, but of course, you can pause anytime. 더워요. 춥다. 추워요. 쉽다. 쉬워요. 어렵다. 어려워요. 새롭다. 새로워요. Great! Now one more time, let's get some muscle memory practice. 따라해보세요. 더워요. 추워요. 쉬워요. 어려워요. 새로워요. And now let's do the other 5 adjectives. 가볍다, 무겁다, 귀엽다, 맵다, and 아름답다. Starting with 가볍다. 가벼워요. 무겁다. 무거워요. 귀엽다. 귀여워요. And notice that this isn't 귀여워요. It's much closer to 귀여워요, with just a slight 의 sound.
귀,
Not
귀.
your lips should barely move.
귀여워요.
Alright, and as we did earlier, 냅다. 매워요. 아름답다. 아름다워요. That's a long one, huh? Let's go ahead and say them each one more time. 따라해보세요. 가벼워요. 무거워요. 귀여워요. 매워요. 아름다워요. Now you might be wondering, why even bother calling these the simplified rules? Why not just call them the PIP irregular rules? Why did I even bother showing you the breakdown of the original rules before? Well, it's important to see how this breakdown happens so you know how to conjugate PIP irregulars into other forms besides just formal present tense. We're not going to practice any other forms today, so you don't have to memorize anything that I'm saying during this time, but let me give you some examples of when you'll need to be aware of the original rules. Step 3 is where we start diverging when using other tenses. Notice that the all verb rules are only for present tense. But let's say we want to use future tense instead. Using 냅다 as our example again, drop 다 and PIP, add u, and then follow the normal verb rules for future tense. Our stem ends with a vowel, so we will add lir and 거예요. 매울 거예요. It will be spicy. Another time that it's important to be aware of the original rules is for certain verb exceptions like 돕다, to help. Because the final and only vowel in this word is o, there's a rule that instead of u, we will add o. So drop 다 and PIP and add o. At this point, because the final vowel is O, rather than following the A verb rules, we will follow the A verb rules. To get 도와, which merges into 도와, and made polite by adding 요. 도와요. And here's just a side note in case you want to pause and read this. This is one of those very rare exceptions that I will remind you of whenever we encounter this word, so again, don't worry about memorizing any of this right now. Just be aware that you'll need to know the original rules in the future when we practice different grammar forms. But for today, let's stick with our simplified version for present tense, and that's the only thing that you'll have to memorize for today. Okay, so let's get those 10 irregular adjectives that we practiced earlier back here. And before we make long sentences like, the basket is heavy, let's just do a quick round of easy sentences with it is, like it's heavy. Let's start with it's hot for our example. Remember that while we could specify it with 그것, it's much more natural to just leave it out. Is included in 덥다, so we only have to conjugate hot from its dictionary form to its present tense polite form. Pause here if you want to try it without the rules, because I'm going to put up a reminder of the rules in 3, 2, 1. 더워요. Okay, how about it's new? 새로워요. It's heavy. 무거워요. It's cold. 추워요. It's light, as in it doesn't weigh much. 가벼워요. It's easy. 쉬워요. It's spicy. 매워요. It's hard, as in difficult. 어려워요. It's beautiful. 아름다워요. And finally, it's cute. 귀여워요. Okay, now let's get into some longer sentences with nouns. And make some sentences like, the baby is cute. We'll start with some nouns that you'll recognize if you've watched the previous videos, and then we'll get some new nouns after that. We've currently got 날씨, 시험, 가방, 신발, 경치, 아기, and 음식. If we want to say the baby is cute, we could use the topic particle 는 or 은 and say 아기는 귀여워요. But without any other context, this could translate to a more general statement like babies are cute. Because of that, we're going to stick with the subject particle 이 and 가 today for a more specific statement like 아기가 귀여워요. The baby is cute. I know I just glossed over that real quick, but if you want a more detailed explanation of at least one of the differences between the topic particle and the subject particle, then check out the previous video by clicking the I up here. So let's go ahead and get our pattern here and start with the weather is hot. As always, pause if you need more time. 날씨가 더워요. The weather is cold. 날씨가 추워요. The test is easy. 시험이 쉬워요. The test is hard. 시험이 어려워요. The bag is light. 가방이 가벼워요. The bag is heavy. 가방이 무거워요. These shoes are new. 신발이 새로워요. The view is beautiful. 경치가 아름다워요. The baby is cute. 아기가 귀여워요. The food is spicy. 음식이 매워요. And a couple of mixed sentences. The baby is heavy. 아기가 무거워요. Those shoes are cute. 신발이 귀여워요. The bag is new. 가방이 새로워요. And the baby is beautiful. 아기가 아름다워요. Okay, and now for our new nouns today. We've got 방, room, 방, Be careful not to pronounce this word as bang, which means bread. I guess unless your bang is made of bang. Look at this thing. Who made this? Next we've got 숙제, homework. 숙제. 바구니, basket. 바구니. 장난감, toy. 장난감. I found this word really hard to remember for a really long time, but it helped when I learned that 장난 means fun, mischief, or joke. One way to say just kidding is 장난이에요. Literally, it's a joke. So again, for toy, we've got 장난감. Next is 정원, garden. 정원. You might notice that I haven't used 아름답다 to describe like a beautiful woman, for example. I actually had a conversation once with a Korean man who said that Korean girls and young women much prefer to be called 예쁘다, and that 아름답다 is used more so for the elegant beauty of older women, for example. And I can definitely confirm that I hear 와 예쁘다, 예뻐, 예뻐요 far more often when describing a pretty person. That being said, there's a really fun song that you can look up on YouTube by CLC called Me, in which the girls sing about 아름다운 미. If you're having trouble memorizing 아름답다, then I recommend listening to that song, as they say 아름다움 literally 34 times. But anyway, I bring it up because they are clearly young women, but are singing about being 아름답다 as opposed to 예쁘다. So don't worry about the differences too much, and I recommend listening to the song because it's very fun. I would play it here if I understood copyright rules on YouTube a little better. 암튼. Side note over, the point is that when I do hear 아름답다, it's often about scenery or nature, which is why we're going to use 정원 today. Our next new word is 강아지, puppy. 강아지. And we've got another side note again, although this will be a shorter side note. 개 literally is dog, and 강아지 literally is puppy. But most Koreans will refer to most dogs in Korea, regardless of their age, as 강아지. I think this is because most dogs that are pets in Korea are tiny, literally almost chihuahua sized. Like this dog right here. This dog is everywhere in Korea. Of course, there are still some big K, usually in more rural areas, but because a lot of families live in apartments that we would probably consider very small compared to our Western houses, it's just not realistic to have a big dog for most families. Every single one of my students that has a dog will refer to their dog as 강아지. And you can just use K for bigger dog breeds, but today we'll stick with 강아지. And our final new word is sus, which is 소스. Good luck memorizing that one. Alright, you walk into your friend's house and the first thing that you notice is the room is hot. Remember, you'll say room, subject particle, hot. And pause if you need extra time. 방이 더워요. Did you say 방이 더워요? Remember that the piep in 방 is a little closer to a P sound rather than a B. Okay, your friend opens the window to cool the room off, and 5 minutes later, the room is cold. 방이 추워요. After closing the window and waiting for the room to return to a good temperature, the two of you get to work on your 숙제. Hey, this 숙제 is easy. 숙제가 쉬워요. Oh wait, we spoke too soon. Once we get into the math 숙제, suddenly This 숙제 is hard. 숙제가 어려워요. Let's take a 숙제 break and go on a picnic. We pack everything up, but oh no! The basket is heavy. 바구니가 무거워요. After unloading a few things, perfect. Now, the basket is light. 바구니가 가벼워요. After setting your blanket down on a nice soft spot of grass, you notice a garden nearby. Wow! The garden is beautiful. 정원이 아름다워요. And look at all the happy people. There's even a puppy over there. Wow, that puppy is so cute. 강아지가 귀여워요. Good thing you brought a dog toy with you to the park. Wait, when did you buy that toy? Your friend asks. Oh, the toy is new. 장난감이 새로워요. Alright, let's get to eating already. Take out this samgyeopsal. You start eating, but holy moly, this sauce is spicy. 소스가 매워요. Wow, what a 좋은 날. Before we wrap up this video, let's do a few minutes of 듣기 연습. Like in our previous lesson, I'm going to say a sentence with all of the vocab that we practiced today, and you'll have to choose which picture fits the sentence. Are you ready? 시작! 숙제가 쉬워요. 숙제가 쉬워요. 숙제가 쉬워요. 소스가 매워요. 소스가 매워요. 소스가 매워요. 강아지가 귀여워요. 강아지가 귀여워요. 강아지가 귀여워요. 방이 더워요. 방이 더워요. 방이 더워요. 바구니가 가벼워요. 바구니가 가벼워요. 바구니가 가벼워요. 장난감이 새로워요. 장난감이 새로워요. 장난감이 새로워요. 장난감이 무거워요. 장난감이 무거워요. 장난감이 무거워요. 신발이 귀여워요. 신발이 귀여워요. 신발이 귀여워요. 바구니가 무거워요. 바구니가 무거워요. 바구니가 무거워요. 방이 귀여워요. 방이 귀여워요. 방이 귀여워요. 신발이 새로워요. 신발이 새로워요. 신발이 새로워요. 날씨가 추워요. 날씨가 추워요. 날씨가 추워요. Alright, and finally we've made it to the summary. In the past few videos we've covered normal adjectives in their adjective form before nouns, as in I bought a small bag. 작은 가방을 샀어요. Pre-up irregular adjectives in their adjective forms before nouns, as in I bought a new bag. 새로운 가방을 샀어요. Regular adjectives after nouns and acting as the verb of the sentence, as in the bag is small, which will follow the same rules of verb conjugations to get 가방이 작아요. And finally, today we covered pre-up irregular adjectives after nouns and as the verb of the sentence, as in the bag is new. 가방이 새로워요. We practiced the simplified version of the pre-up irregular rules today because these rules specifically refer to the polite present tense. But just be aware that we'll need to know the full set of rules when we use other tenses like future tense or with certain exception words like 없다. But I'll remind you of those rules when we get to them, so don't worry about it today. When we want to make a simple sentence like it is cute, we can specify it with 그것, that. But it's also really natural to just leave it off. Adjectives in Korean will function as the verb of the sentence, so you don't need am, is, or are. You can just think of each adjective as already containing the meaning of be. So to make the sentence it is cute, we only need the word cute, which we will take from its dictionary form into its polite present tense form by following the simplified rules that we learned today. Drop ta and piup, and add woyo. It is cute, 귀여워요. For words like 귀엽다 and 쉽다, remember that you don't need to make a strong W with your lips and say 귀여워요 or 쉬워요. The Korean pronunciation requires almost no movement from your lips.
귀여워요. 쉬워요.
When making longer statements with a subject like the baby is cute, we used the subject particle 이엔카 to get 아기가 귀여워요. Although depending on the context, there are plenty of situations where you could use the topic particle 는 and 은 and say 아기는 귀여워요. I know it might seem like I'm always being a bit vague when I bring up 이엔카 versus 는 and 은, but that's because there are so many subtle nuances, and when we do our sentence practice, I don't always give a lot of context. So for the most part, so far in our lessons, 는 and 은 and 이엔카 have been fairly interchangeable. It's kind of like explaining the differences between a and the. I saw a bird and I saw the bird are both correct, but it depends on the context as to which one you'll use. Here are all of the words that we practiced with today, so feel free to screenshot this or pause to write anything down. In our next video, we'll do a giant practice palooza with everything about adjectives, and then we'll finally move on to some new material. Great job today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. 다음에 또 봐요.